Hi, and welcome to Oxford Analytica's video briefing. Today we're going to be talking about Russia. It's been a pretty busy week in Russia. On Monday, the ruble fell. On Monday night, the Russian central bank raised interest rates from 10.5 to 17%, and on Tuesday, the ruble fell again. President Vladimir Putin had a long press conference today in which he said that at most, the Russian economy will be weak for about 2 years and then will recover. I'm Chris Oates, North America analyst, and I'm joined by Michael Taylor, who covers Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union states. Mike, is that correct? Is everything going to be okay in a few years, as Mr. Putin says?
Well, I suppose so. I mean, the crisis does seem to have calmed down a bit. I mean, partly because I think the oil price is stabilized. It's been quite closely linked to the oil price. This whole problem with the ruble losing value, that started back in June, July, when the oil price started to go down. I do wonder whether, in fact, they allowed the ruble to lose value because it kind of works in a sort of countervailing way to the oil price. As the oil price weakens, if the ruble weakens as well, then when they sell it for dollars, they get more rubles for their dollar. So I'm rather wondering whether this thing about allowing the ruble to float was actually a deliberate policy.
So in that case, Russian oil producers would be relatively immune from the ruble price, but that's at the expense of Russian consumers. There was a report that London property has gone down this year based on the lack partly of Russian buyers. And so it seems as if those in Russia with their money in rubles who would like to have it in dollars are out of luck.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sort of, as an Englishman, I'm rather reminded of what Harold Wilson said back in 1967, that the pound in your pocket wouldn't lose any value when the UK devalued then. And of course, to some extent it's true. I mean, if you're living entirely in a domestic context in the Russian domestic economy, then what happens with the exchange rate doesn't really affect you as yet. Where it's going to affect them eventually is in the inflation rate. Inflation's always been a problem in Russia. They never really quite got on top of it. It's 8, 9, 10%, that sort of range. And because they actually import quite a lot, with the exchange rate doing what it's done, that's going to really jack up prices of imports, and that's going to hit them probably in over the next few months.
And also with the interest rate at 17%, that's also going to help inflation and also hurt the economy. Yeah,
I mean, in a way it does. I mean, it's more of a signal, really. I mean, the Russian economy doesn't quite work as well as a Western economy in that respect. The interest rate doesn't immediately make a lot of difference. It's more of kind of a signal that the bank was taking things very seriously.
And what will be some of the other consequences? I know Vladimir Putin likes to talk about how Russia has to be respected and has nuclear weapons and it throws around its weight internationally. Is that going to stay the same, or will they change path?
I think it might mean that we've coming to an end this idea of Russian resurgence, which dates back to about the mid-2000s, when they got back on their feet again after the 1998 crash. And it seemed that when certainly Putin came into power at about the same time as well, in 1999-2000, and he presided over this sort of recovery of the economy, which seemed to give them a lot more sort of room for manoeuvre when it came to their position on the international stage. They could start talking about increasing spending on defence. And they also sort of provided a kind of a counterexample to the Western way of doing things to other countries, say like Hungary or like Turkey, who, Orban, the Prime Minister in Turkey, was talk about the West having failed, economically stagnating. Look at Russia, China, Singapore as these kind of examples of how to run your country. I'm not sure that Russia's quite such a good example anymore.
But they will still intervene in Ukraine, although they claim not to be intervening in Ukraine in the east.
I think they're committed to that now. I mean, it's been it'll be a terrific climb down if Putin did sort of withdraw from Ukraine, unless he found some kind of acceptable formula that made it seem it wasn't a defeat. Yeah. But I think they're probably being a lot more kind of amenable to negotiation now than they were perhaps a few months ago.
And there will, of course, be other economic issues. Tajikistan, I believe, has about half of its economy is remittances from Russia. So if the money coming in from Russia is worth less, then that'll hurt their economy. But there has to be other places. Will Europe suffer from a weak Russia on their borders? Economically speaking,
I think Germany exports quite a lot to Russia. I think one of the big effects we can predict now is on the tourism trade in some of the East Mediterranean countries, which have started, with Russia becoming more prosperous, have seen quite a big upsurge in Russian tourism. And they're big spenders as well. They tend to spend on average more than West European tourists in places like Turkey, Greece, Cyprus, Croatia. So, I mean, the exchange rate sort of halves, which is basically what it's done in the last 6 months. I mean, the other thing that obviously that hurts is people going abroad and spending money abroad.
And that might matter a lot for Greece, given that they're currently in the middle of presidential elections, which may trigger a general election.
Yeah, Greece's sort of recovery has really been based upon a couple of good years for tourism.
Yeah. Well, this is an issue and a story that we will be covering every day in the Daily Brief. So for more on this or on Greece or anything else, please check in with us at Oxford Analytica, and have a nice day.